Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video we're talking about Everton Football Club and their manager Sean Dyche, who of course this past very week became the manager of said club and has already got off to the most perfect and dream start to his Everton career. Of course, last week the news broke that Sean Dyche had succeeded Frank Lampard as the new Everton manager. Obviously, Lampard was sacked earlier last month, and Dyche has since taken over, since played or been involved with his first game as in the Everton dugout, and got off to, like I say, the perfect start with a dream win over top of the table Arsenal, a 1-0 victory on Saturday in their lunchtime kickoff. And this video is basically based on what we can probably expect from Everton and Sean Dyche going forward, as well as whether or not Everton can survive another season in the Premier League under his management. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things always probably greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get into this video. Let's talk about Everton and Sean Dyche. And like I say, this was probably one of the better managerial candidates that you could have possibly chosen in certain ways. When we talk about Everton in the past, we talked about them in a very, very negative way, and it's obvious and it's easy to understand why. Everything in that club is divided. It's very toxic. It's not great. It's a bit of a train wreck and a car crash of a club, and has been run so for a long time now. And, you know, a lot of Everton fans have been doom and gloom for a long time, and understandably so when you consider how their club has been run and how their club has been managed off the pitch. And then when you look at on the pitch, it doesn't get much better either. Some of the players aren't good enough, they're not strong enough, they're not like the Everton that I certainly grew up watching, which was they were very difficult to beat. In some games they are, but it's very sporadic across a season, and in some games they are just downright terrible. And hence why they are kind of in this relegation battle. Frank Lampard obviously took charge of them, got sacked last month. Difficult job, obviously. It's a toxic cesspit, that club, and I've said it time and time again that you're walking into a club that is divided, is at each other's throats. Not necessarily maybe the fans at each other's throats, but mainly at the throats of the ownership and the powers that be at that club and everything else that goes along with it. And I did say that when Lampard did get sacked, that the next manager to walk in would have a slightly more difficult job, because the next manager to follow the previous manager always seems to have a much more difficult job, and Dyche is no exception. The thing I'll say about this is probably one of the better managerial appointments that you could probably make in Everton's position. A manager comes in with Premier League experience right off the bat. It's a smart move. You're not rolling the dice or making a gamble on someone from a foreign league or someone or like a young manager just making his way into the path of management within the game or anything like that. You're getting a guy who's been around for a long time, been around the Premier League for a long time, brought Burnley from the Championship up to the Premier League, and obviously stayed there for several seasons, even defying all kinds of odds. He has got Premier League experience, and he is very smart about it. The football is going to be very direct. The football is going to be very physical. The football is going to not be exactly pretty. There's nothing about Sean Dyche that's pretty, not in just terms of how he looks, with all due respect, but, and I wouldn't say that to his face either because he'd beat me up, but there is nothing about the way that he tries to implement his style of play to be any kind of attractive football, free-flowing football, very nice on the eye style of play. It is very direct. It is very, I wouldn't necessarily say completely basic, but as basic as what you can get in the kind of modern day game, I guess. It's a bit of a throwback, and especially when you consider that, obviously, at his time at Burnley, It was the kind of classic old school 4-4-2 that he liked to implement. And to be fair, it worked. Like I say, it might not be easy on the eye. It might not be the most attractive style of play that you'll ever see. But it got results. And at the end of the day, that is what Everton are wanting more than anything right now. They are wanting results. And they'll get it under Sean Dyche. We've already seen an example of it. Now, whether that was a new manager bounce, whether that is going to last going forward, we don't know, but they did play very well against Arsenal. They did kind of deliver a little bit of a reality check to Arsenal, not to get too ahead of themselves. And obviously got the 3 points and the victory that they so desperately needed and deserved. And it seems like the Everton fans instantly have taken to Sean Dyche, and he's a character. He is definitely a character. We've seen in his press conferences and everything that he is quite the character. But obviously realistic as well. He knows the kind of job at play. He knows what he's going to have to deal with. And again, another point in Everton's favour with this is that, like I say, he has defied the odds time and time again with Burnley. This is a manager that came into a Burnley side not exactly with deep pockets of cash, having to, by Premier League standards at least, pretty much thrive and survive off of what many would consider, like I say, by Premier League standards, to be a bit of a shoestring budget. And time again, he delivered. He got them really, really difficult to play against. He got their home form real good. The home fans were really behind the team and really behind him as a manager. And it made Turf Moor a very difficult and horrible place to visit, unless you were supposedly Manchester City. And, well, look at City now. But I digress. He made Burnley extremely difficult. And again, that was the kind of Everton that I watched growing up as a kid. Everton were very difficult when I was watching them growing up under David Moyes. He made them extremely difficult to beat. He made them a thorn in the sides of lots of people. It wasn't sustainable across a 38-game season that they could ever put towards a title challenge, but challenging towards the top four. And I'm not saying that they'll get that far or whatever it may be, but at least for the short term, I think that this is a very good appointment, and I can definitely see them keeping their heads above water with this style of an appointment. As much as I would love for Everton to go down and kind of soften the blow a little bit of my own club season in Liverpool, of course, you know, I think I have to admit, I think this is a solid appointment by the Everton board. Slightly surprised in Sean Dyche that he took on this kind of role, especially given the kind of situation Everton find themselves in right now. But in terms of a manager that's been there and done it all in this type of situation, with a board that aren't going to be, or don't seem to be releasing funds because of obviously previous financial matters in terms of throwing money at a lot of players that haven't worked and definitely haven't worked. He can definitely build something here that makes them tough, that makes them difficult to play against, and maybe gets the crowd going a little bit more. Obviously, I've never questioned the crowd to be ever not behind the Everton players and the club, and we've seen that when they've really needed to dig deep, the Everton fans always are there. But they needed something. They needed something to give them a bit of hope and a bit of optimism for the rest of the season in terms of hoping to kind of beat this relegation battle and obviously survive another year in the Premier League. I think this could be the appointment to do it. He's not blessed with great players. He's already lost what would be considered to be possibly their best player in the January transfer window right off the bat in Anthony Gordon, going to Newcastle, of course. But if there's ever anyone who can drill in that defensive structure, that defensive discipline into this kind of team, if there is ever someone who can work on the strengths of these players, it is going to be Sean Dyche. If there's ever going to be someone to get, again, it's a different style of play for these players to have to learn again, but it's basic and like I say, it is very effective. And I'm looking at the squad and I'm thinking, I'd be thinking, looking at like Dominic Calvert-Lewin right off the bat, right as the prime number one target in this kind of Sean Dyche lineup. He's going to thrive. Obviously, he's struggled with injuries and stuff the past couple of years. And obviously, if he's put them behind them, I reckon we could see a bit of a resurgence of the Dominic Calvert-Lewin that we saw under Carlo Ancelotti. Not to the same extent, obviously, because it will be a slightly different role, I would imagine. But with a direct style of play, with the way that they can be more direct to him, and with Sean Dyche getting in his head and telling him where to be positional-wise and everything along those lines. And like I say, if Calvert-Lewin can stay fit, stay healthy, stay strong, and obviously get some support around him, maybe they do stick or go back to the 4-4-2, or maybe Sean Dyche modifies his formation a little bit. Calvert-Lewin could become a great striker again, or could get even better as a striker, should I say. He could go back to when he was at his best form under Ancelotti, and like I say, that could be another thorn in the side of many Premier League defenders going forward. In terms of whether this has longevity behind it, probably not. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Like I say, it's only one result we're sort of basing this on, and it was against an Arsenal side that needed to be a little bit humbled, in my opinion. Needed to be given that dosage of reality to them, but ultimately it didn't hurt them as much as probably what it should have, given how Manchester City performed this weekend as well. But yeah, there's a lot here to, if it makes sense, there's a lot to work off here for Sean Dyche under limitations, if you know what I mean. He's been limited before, and he's limited here, I believe, and I think that would help him in some ways, as he's been there and he's done it all, and he can remind these players, or tell these players, of how it used to be at Burnley, get his point across, get his style of play across. His very direct and very physical approach. If he can get these players to obviously be match fit and be ready to leave it all out on the pitch, Everton could be in for a strong end to the season. Obviously, battling relegation is the first priority. I think this managerial appointment definitely, or should I say, in my opinion, will definitely see them across that finish line, and I think they'll just manage to survive another year. But yeah, like I say, this is pretty bizarre. It was already, like I say, a dream start, beating Arsenal, and it could get even better. And I say that in a way that I don't want it to get even better, because their next game is a big Merseyside derby, Monday night. Everton taking on Liverpool, Merseyside derby. Obviously, I want Liverpool to win that game, and Liverpool desperately need to win that game. I cannot remember what it was like to last win a Premier League game and take 3 points. And obviously, it is against bitter rivals in Everton, and like I say, it makes that game even more. There's a lot more riding on that game. If this was an Everton side under Frank Lampard, where I think it was a stat that was brought out that teams end their winless runs against Everton, a few teams have done that this season, I'd be pretty confident. But with Sean Dyche, with the way that he plays, with obviously this possible new manager bounce they could be on, and with the way that Liverpool currently are right now, as much as it is Everton, I'm still not entirely confident. But I'll talk more about that kind of prediction in obviously a video later on in the week. As far as obviously what this goes, like I say, a fantastic start for Sean Dyche. Could get even better if obviously he wins that big Merseyside derby on Monday. Gets the fans really on side then. And it's going to be an interesting end to the season for Everton. I don't know how long this will last. I don't know the longevity of a Sean Dyche at an Everton, especially with the way that football is moving on. And also, I will say, his time away from the game could be good or bad. You could have the good side where maybe he's taken a step back and looked at football bigger, and maybe he's got better as a manager, learned some things, understood some things a little bit more. Maybe he could change things to what happened obviously at Burnley, or maybe it's passed him by. Those are the kind of things that you have to look at when you do take a step back from the game, when you're heavily involved in it. Obviously, he's been doing a bit of punditry and probably just been enjoying a bit of a rest from the game, rather than obviously the day-to-day life of a football manager. So it will be interesting to see if obviously that's happened with him, whether he's got better as a manager, or whether he's learnt to understand things a little better, or whether or not the game has simply passed him by. And obviously, with the way that football is evolving and changing, it's certainly a possibility. But like I say, it was a fantastic and perfect start for Sean Dyche at Everton, and I personally believe that this is a very good managerial appointment for Everton. But it is Everton Football Club, so don't be surprised if this is pretty much a bit of a ticking time bomb as to how the good times will last, so to speak. But those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the appointment of Sean Dyche as Everton manager? What do you make of his start against Arsenal in the most perfect way possible with the Toffees? And what do you obviously make of Everton's chances going forward, whether it be the Merseyside derby on Monday, or whether it be their chances of Premier League survival for the remainder of the season? All of that good stuff will make for interesting comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section, and I'm sure they'll make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever greatly appreciated, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, this has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you and speak to you all again soon in another video.